You are listening to Amplify Your Success Podcast, episode 218. And today, let's learn what the essential legal support is for entrepreneurs just like you and I. So let's get started. Welcome to the Amplify Your Success Podcast. Get ready to ramp up your revenue, amplify your impact, and make your mark in the world. This is the show for experts, thought leaders, and service professionals who want to shatter their limits and achieve that next level. You're going to find out from other experts and influencers how they made it. Now, let's get amplified. Hey there, inspired entrepreneurs and business leaders. It's your host, Authority Amplifier, Visibility Catalyst for Expertpreneurs, Melanie Benson. And today I have brought a friend of mine in to talk about what legal support looks like for entrepreneurs, because way too often we do not have the right structure in place to make sure we're avoiding really costly legal snafus. And trust me, I've bumped into a few of them over the years completely blindly. So it's really good to have these constructs in place early on. I just adore this person that's joining us today. And she is so brilliant and has got so many great resources for us. So tune in. And speaking of entrepreneurs and expert-based businesses, we, as a rule, are very focused on how do we help other people solve their problems. But oftentimes, we don't always know what our own problems are, what the right problem is to solve. And that's where my Authority Amplifiers course comes in. Now, this is a very short course. It's 7 days with 7 tips that will help you get crystal clear what's really working for you to amplify your authority and be able to establish how you're going to help your ideal clients solve their problems, but also very quickly uncover what may not be working. So you can get this course absolutely free right now at authorityamplifiers.com. Plus, you're going to get an exclusive ticket right into my Facebook group, Amplify Your Authority, where we go deep and cover all kinds of tips and strategies and techniques and bonus trainings to help you make sure that you're building a sustainable business that you love as an expert, as a talented individual. And hey, let's really keep monetizing your superpower, okay? So I'll see you over there, authorityamplifiers.com. Now, let's get into today's episode. Welcome back, Amplifiers. It's your host, Melanie here. And today, I can't wait to dig into the essential 5 legal pillars that entrepreneurs must know to have that strong foundation for business success. And to talk about these essential 5 with me, I have invited my friend Heather Pearce Campbell. I can't wait for you to meet her because she is a warrior mama. She's a nature lover. And she's a dedicated attorney and legal coach for world-changing entrepreneurs. I love that phrase, world-changing entrepreneurs, because I know that's me. Hopefully that is you too. And host of Guts, Grit, and Great Business Podcast, which is one of my new fabulously inspiring podcasts that I love to listen to. She is based in Seattle, mom to 2 little wild munchkins, and founder of the Pearce Law PLLC, home to her legal practice, and the legal website Warrior, an online business that provides legal education and support to information entrepreneurs like coaches, consultants, online educators, speakers, and authors. Basically, it's our tribe here, right? Around the US and the world. She hoards information, paper, and books while secretly dreaming of becoming a minimalist, and relishes an occasional rare night with her hubby when the kiddos are miraculously asleep and she can soak up HGTV without guilt. Heather, I didn't even know the HGTV addiction. We got to talk, girl, because that probably means you're buying all kinds of crazy stuff on HGTV and giving it away as gifts at holiday time, right? Tell me you're right.
Actually, no. So my guilty pleasure, my husband and I are both project people, but with 2 little kids, those quickly get pushed to the side, right? We've done our fair share of projects, both individually and together, but HGTV is really our way to live vicariously through other people.
Oh my God, I love that. So not Netflix binging, not like getting addicted to the latest series on TV, HGTV.
Yeah, give us a good house that we can just tear apart and rebuild, and that's our jam.
See, my hubby and I, we live vicariously through the people who travel. And so we
Oh,
we like to watch the I can't remember some House Finders show, but it's the
oh,
international version where
totally.
they're relocating overseas and we're like, oh, do you ever want to go there? Like
Oh my
we get our travel
gosh.
on right now with being locked up and no travel ability. So that has been really funny.
Well, and that
Poor
is
thing.
generally as a what I call a no TV person. Like I am mostly not in support of TV, but there are some amazing benefits of having it, especially in a time like now, like with two
Yeah.
little kids trapped at home largely when we would be out doing things in the world. Like nature shows and National Geographic, there's so much stuff that we can consume that is fun.
Yeah, we can turn it into an educational experience, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Sure, we'll
Exactly.
find a way. That's what I tell myself. This is
That's
research,
right. That's what we'll
research
call
on
it.
human behavior.
So fun. But
All right.
I know exactly the shows you're talking about, though, with the travel and the international house hunting.
Yeah.
Those are fun. Those are
Don't
really
get me
fun.
started on the baking shows though, because then we're gonna have a whole different conversation than we were planning on.
Oh my gosh, are you into baking?
Oh, you didn't know? I'm like
I
a
didn't
closet paleo
know.
gourmet baker. Yeah.
I love that. Okay, another chat, another time, but
Another
that's
chat,
awesome.
another time. Yes. We'll reserve that for our Facebook Live someday.
Yeah.
So let's talk about legal support.
Mm-hmm.
And the role you're playing in the world is so important and so valuable. And yet, a lot of expertpreneurs, entrepreneurs, people, these world changing entrepreneurs are not getting the legal support they need. Why is this?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I've said this for years. Our traditional legal model, I call it the black box legal model. It takes a lot for people to get inside the box. We have a lot of barriers to entry, and particularly for a whole segment of the small business legal consumer niche, right? Regular, like larger businesses, they've got the resources to have, in-house counsel, to get specialty counsel when they need it. But small businesses are really at a loss for how to not only cover the cost that it takes to consume traditional legal services, but to also get matched with the right provider. That can be a challenge. I've talked to so many entrepreneurs that, I had one guy come up to me at a conference after I spoke, and he was like, it was going to cost me $10,000 to $15,000 just to sit down with an attorney to basically evaluate my business and give me a map. And I've heard that story fairly frequently, and as well as others where they get connected to somebody who does one piece of it or can advise them on, one small part of it. But when they actually talk about, the online portion of their business or some of the other things they're doing, they get kind of this blank deer in the headlights look of like, well, I don't really know online business. I might be able to provide a client service contract, but not this other stuff. And I think it's just really challenging for entrepreneurs and especially what I call information entrepreneurs, right, which are a subsection of the small business niche, to really get matched with a legal service provider that can meet their needs, can help educate them. My stand in regards to legal support and legal information is that just like these entrepreneurs have had to learn sales and marketing and in some cases, technology and all the things that are required to run their business and lead their business, so too do they need to get some basic legal chops. They need to have some basic legal information and education that will really help support them in being a better leader of their business, because that's what they are. Whether they want to be that or not, we all have to lead our business.
Talk about some of the things, like let's get specific about some of these areas. Maybe
Yeah.
they're risk areas or potential landmines or roadblocks that could come up. Like, what are some of the typical things that you see that these online entrepreneurs are facing?
Yeah, well, and we can talk first about kind of risks and landmines, and then I'm also happy to walk through a simple framework I developed that will help people identify where their legal issues are, like where legal support lies, largely by category. And it really helps people to break down and understand it in a much easier way. But, risk for the folks that I serve is kind of all over the place, right? Everything from, publishing information online, because even that simple act of pushing information out into the world, we can know how we want somebody to ultimately use that information, but we don't get to control what they actually do with it, right? Do they rely on it in a way that was not intended, and then they go make decisions in their life that have, some detriment to them or to somebody else? So, that's a risk. Hiring people is a risk, whether it's independent contractors, whether it's employees. Plenty of people end up on the wrong side of a legal situation because somebody does something on behalf of their business that violates somebody else's intellectual property, whether it's copyright, trademark infringement, doing something silly in the online space, which I have seen so many times, somebody grabbing an image off the internet or taking copy that they like borrowing it as swipe copy and basically duplicating somebody's, front page of their website or whatever. And there's all sorts of ways that, when we bring people into our business to support us, that can go sideways if we are not truly leading our business. And then on the planning side, like really being able to evaluate where we're at in our business, I'm like intellectual property is one of the big areas, what we've already created, where we're headed. It's a little bit of a puzzle piece trying to figure out how to prioritize, the legal needs that you have and really tackling them in the right order. One final area, because obviously anybody in the online space is probably working really hard at building a database and collecting information, right? So doing data collection online, I joke that the online world of business is the Wild West of business. People can throw up a website and a landing page overnight and have no idea from a legal perspective what they're supposed to be doing. And privacy regulations around the world apply to what they're doing, and they may not know what that is, and they may not know how to comply with those things. And so there really are road mines, landmines all over the place. And I tell people, just like when you're driving down the road and you're presumed to know the speed limit, whether or not you saw the speed limit sign, you are presumed to know the laws that apply to your particular business.
So you were mentioning some of these risks, and most of us are doing business in some way, shape, or form online, especially right now. I actually just heard about the first case in the event side of things, because a lot of us have events in person, or at least we used to. I just
Yeah.
heard about the first case where an attendee got COVID from attending an event. I don't know if you heard about it too. And they're now suing the event producer and the host.
That's right.
So I think this is going to be a new world where we have to
Yes.
consider the experiences that we might be creating in person as we are
Yep.
more and more of us are able to do in-person experiences, and looking at all of these new things that we're basically, every time we turn around, there's some new law, there's some new condition, some new situation that we have to know how to navigate to not just protect ourselves, but to protect the people we serve as well. So there's clear,
Yes.
boundaries around it all. So I'm kind of curious, like, what are you thinking is the new thing we have to consider when it comes to being world-changing entrepreneurs and all of these new Black Lives
Yeah,
Matter, COVID, like
that's right.
the world keeps creating new experiences that we need to navigate, right?
Well, it's true, and it's it's what makes, I think, the legal aspect of our businesses challenging for some people to even like gear up to tackle, because they feel like, oh, but the shift I'd like people to make is that just like marketing is not a set it and forget it. You don't put a marketing plan in place and then never revisit that plan. Right? Legal is like that. Legal needs and legal stuff evolves with your business and also evolves with the landscape. And so that's a really good point. This whole COVID situation, I mean, it's why one of the latest contract templates that I've uploaded to my site is a COVID basically event release and waiver, so that for people that are still venturing into that space right now and they have clients that are willing to take on that risk, they're still putting proper paperwork in place that documents what the agreement is and what people are signing up for, and making sure that the lines are really clear, because they're always, if it's not COVID, there's something else. Like, our privacy landscape is really evolving, as most people became aware a couple years ago. Everybody was getting inundated with all of this, the GDPR updates, and even that, for people that are truly doing international business, just in the last couple of months, Brazil basically implemented its equivalent of GDPR. And so it is a landscape that is evolving. I think that we're going to continue to see trends in regards to privacy. And I think the trend lines, for the most part, will be pretty consistent towards more protection of individual privacy, at least, and I can't say in the United States that's going to be the case anytime soon, although we are seeing certain state laws trend that direction, but certainly around the world, that's the trend. I think also, the fact that COVID has shifted the business landscape so dramatically, even this issue of, live events, and in the legal space, people have probably heard the term place of public accommodation. I think if we haven't already, and it'll be interesting to see the law evolve in this area, I think websites are going to start to become places of public accommodation, especially in light of the fact that we can't gather in person always. And so even though right now ADA compliance for websites, you have to be a business or an organization that employs at least 15 people to fall under the federal ADA requirements that require you have a responsive website that allows for additional support for people that are, blind, or that, have other impairments, trying to make your website as accessible as possible. I would not be surprised if we see that start to change more quickly than it would have towards more mandatory compliance for businesses of all sizes, especially as the technology evolves to make that more doable. So there are definitely some things that in the legal world we're keeping our eye on for sure.
Wow, I had no idea all that was going on. That's so fascinating. Well, you referenced it. You have this framework. I think you said there's 5 elements or pillars to this framework. Could we just quickly hit what those 5 pillars are? I don't know if I'm saying that right. 5 elements of your framework, and then maybe deep dive into one that you think is super impactful right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, there's a quick presentation that I do, and I can spend a lot of time in it. I can do it in 5 minutes, but basically it's, I call it my 5 bucket framework for business protection. And the 5 buckets, if we're starting kind of, order of priority, bucket number 1 is business formation, right? And this means an incorporated business that has a proper structure. We can spend more time there, but that's a really important foundational bucket. Bucket number 2 is a big bucket. I spend a lot of time here with my clients, and that is business contracts. And just like the COVID example, right? People having to get a whole slew of new documentation in place around COVID and waivers and stuff that acknowledges the fact that the landscape has shifted. Basically, in bucket number 2, I let people know that essentially any exchange of value that you have in your business should be covered by a business contract of some sort, whether it's publishing information online or delivering a service to a client, hosting an event, right? So bucket number 2 is a big bucket. We could certainly spend lots of time there. Bucket number 3 is business insurance. And so even though I'm not an insurance salesman, it's not what I do, I get lots of questions about it. I know a thing or two about it because it's a really important pillar or bucket of our protection when it comes to building out a business. And so for small businesses, there's something like 13 different insurance policies available to them in that bucket. And I tell people, just like when you buy a home and you connect with an insurance broker about getting a homeowner's insurance policy, and they ask you things like, do you have a swimming swimming pool or a trampoline, or do you own a dangerous dog, right? They're really doing a risk assessment on, your unique home and property. And it's the same for your business. You want to connect with somebody who really intimately understands what you're doing in your business and gets you matched with the right insurance products to give you the additional peace of mind that you're looking for. Bucket number 4 is intellectual property protection plan. And I put IP into its own bucket because so many small business owners and entrepreneurs, they tremendously undervalue their intellectual property. And it tends to be the primary asset of the businesses that I serve. So the IP protection plan bucket, that's where we talk about things like trademark registrations, copyright registrations, as well as contracts. There's overlap there because people often don't realize that they can use their contracts to help protect their intellectual property, help protect their digital content, things that exist inside their courses and their services and their online platforms. So that's bucket number 4 is IP. And bucket number 5 is, and I joke with people, like everybody's running towards this bucket, dispute resolution plan. And really, you could swap out the title of this bucket and call it communication plan. And the reason, again, that I put dispute resolution in its own bucket is because in business, we really do have more opportunities than most for things to go wrong or for things to go sideways and for there to be misunderstandings. There's a lot of moving parts in most businesses that I serve, and whether it's a miscommunication with an employee or an independent contractor or an affiliate or joint venture partner or maybe a business partner, there's lots of ways that business can kind of turn into that game of telephone where somebody says one thing and it's interpreted totally different, right? And so having a dispute resolution strategy, which is really all about fundamentally understanding that communication is essential, clearly communicating, understanding really some very powerful concepts in the world of dispute resolution and communication strategy can really, that 5th bucket, I tell people, is money in your pocket. If you can avoid the kinds of disputes that take up your life for 4 or 6 months or a year or 2 years, depending on if you end up in litigation, you really are spending energy in the right place to develop skills that will help your business thrive and really keep you out of trouble. So that's a quick overview of those 5 buckets.
I love it. The one that was really speaking to me, because we haven't talked about this a lot on the show, but I know it comes up a lot, is this dispute resolution. And in particular, and I'm imagining this is one you see a lot, these disputes about services delivered, services paid for. You really like this, refund requests.
Yes.
How does someone really prepare for having the right legal setup? Because I know, I'll give you an example. One time, this is probably a good 15 years ago, I had somebody come in. She bought a package. No, actually, we did a one-off session. We did a really big one-off session. She wanted like a deep dive,
like a
what I call,
VIP day or
yeah,
something.
but we did it in like a half-day strategy.
Yep.
And I did the whole thing, delivered everything. She was like massively appreciative, turned around and asked for her money back. And I know that was a prosperity issue. There was like a little bit of a mindset, like lack.
Yes.
But at the time, I'm like, what? And sure enough, because I didn't have the right things in place, I lost the chargeback request.
Yes.
Even though we'd done everything that I knew to do. So how do we prepare ourselves to really be strong and have the right things in place to protect ourselves around that stuff?
Oh, it's such a good example. And this is even the example that you shared. It's really, really timely example. And you're right that there's a lot of weird mindset stuff that happens, especially when people are investing, like really investing, putting a bunch of money out there. It's human nature to really question ourselves and be like, should I have done that? And most often it's reflecting obviously on the person, not the person who delivered the thing. And it can cause real heartache. I had a friend call me the other day, and very similarly, she had delivered she's a speaker coach, and she had delivered, I want to say a $20,000 or $25,000 service, delivered all the things in multiple sessions and really went deep with this client. And COVID hit, and this client initiated a chargeback request on this massive investment. And she lost it. And it's heartbreaking when it happens. Chargeback requests are brutal for small businesses when they go wrong, because not only have you lost the value of the initial thing, right? You did the delivery, but then you incur charges, the additional time that it takes to engage in that dispute and defend against a chargeback request, especially for people that end up trying to like hire legal help or sort out, other ways to get that resolved. It usually costs the small business 2 to 3 times the amount of the original purchase to deal with a chargeback request. When you tally up time, workforce energy, like anything else put into that, and then covering the cost of it. So it really is detrimental. And I will share with you, in fact, I'll be sure to send you over one of the links, because I've got an article that I wrote that is like 10 steps to basically help small businesses prevent what is called friendly fraud. This is friendly fraud. So chargeback requests and friendly fraud, they make up about 86% of credit card fraud. It's a really, really high number. And friendly fraud, I'm not sure who named it that. It's not all that friendly. Like literally, it's somebody buying a service or buying a thing, consuming it, and just going to the credit card company because they can. Everybody knows they've got a 6-month window to fight that dispute. And credit card companies tend to be very, very protective of their consumer client. And so it is problematic. But step number 1 is evaluating your sales process, right? And also evaluating the legal documents that you have to support that process. So in the online space, where plenty of people are making big sales, you have to evaluate, do you have not just website terms and conditions, but terms of purchase specific to the sale? And there should be certain things in there, including a really, really clearly outlined refund policy, some limitations of liability, certain disclaimers, but you want to have and this is the other part, not only your terms of purchase that are specific to whatever it is that you're selling. And in your instance, doing the one-on-one work directly with a client, maybe that's your client services agreement, right? So you need some document covering that exchange of value. And you want to make sure that in the instance that it's an online transaction, you have screenshots captured of the sales page or the order form, meaning that you want the credit card company or the merchant account to be able to connect the dots and say, oh yeah, so they understood they were paying this amount for this service. Here are the terms that are applying. Here's the refund policy, and making sure that it is all so clear that there are no questions about what that person was buying and getting and how it would be delivered.
Yeah, so that's really good advice.
Yes, because that is the first place that a credit card company or a merchant account is going to look. They're going to say, where are the terms? Where are the legal terms that apply to this purchase? And for most people that end up losing the chargeback request, they didn't have any. They didn't have any terms that applied. Maybe they had a sales page, but they didn't have any legal terms. They had no legal contract in place that the client had to sign off on that said, I agree to these terms. And so, if you're doing that in the online space, you need the check the box style. I have read and agreed to the terms of purchase. If you're doing one-on-one client services or group services, you need a signed contract that you send over through HelloSign or DocuSign or whatever. And this is again where you evaluate your sales and enrollment process to make sure that they have signed off on those terms before they pay and it's documented.
And before you start delivering any of the work product, my friend,
That's
do
right.
not deliver until you have the agreement in place.
That's absolutely right.
I have seen this happen many, many times.
And it's painful. It's so painful. I hate when I see these scenarios, especially when somebody like you has worked really hard to deliver the thing, and then somebody, just goes and gets a chargeback request.
Yeah. So, I think there's a lot of legal landmines that we can
Mm-hmm.
encounter. And, I don't want to leave our community here feeling like, oh, I'm not even going to bother. There's just too much. I mean, there is, as you were mentioning, you've got a whole 5-part framework here, and it's just about being aware and not
Mm-hmm.
being the ostrich with your head in the sand, not being conscious of what can happen so that you can prepare for these things and, protect your business, protect your clients, and not be in legal hot water.
Yes.
So, if somebody was wanting to get started learning about these different things that they want to be prepared for and have the right systems in place, what's the best place for them to start?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have a couple of resources I'm very happy to share. So, one is access to my Legal Basics Boot Camp, right? So, it does a walkthrough of these 5 buckets, the 5 bucket framework that I just talked about. And it's a short video series. You get some daily emails that kind of prompt you along and ask you, have you done this? Have you taken care of this? And so that's a great resource because of the daily prompts. I get people that are like, oh, day 5, like, okay, I'm going to jump in and do it. And that's okay. Life gets busy, but what I want for people, just like you said, is not to feel like it's so overwhelming that you have to look the other way or keep your head in the sand. You don't have to learn everything. My philosophy is that it's the job of people like me to teach you the golden nuggets so that you can issue spot, so that you can spot a red flag either coming or spot a red flag in your business and go get it addressed in a timely manner. The difficulty is when people don't have the roadmap and they don't really know what to look for. So they end up quite a ways down the road after a scenario has already developed or even passed, and then it becomes not fixable. That's what I want to avoid for most people that I try to educate or who become my clients. Like, let's avoid the really obvious potholes.
Good job. Good job. I love that. And where do they find that? On your website, or is there a special
Yeah,
link?
absolutely. So if you go to legalwebsitewarrior.com/legal basics bootcamp.
I will also link that up in the show notes to make it easy to find.
Awesome.
And that is a great place to start. And I gotta say, I know known Heather for a little while. She is such a great resource around all of this. I highly recommend that you find your legal advisor that you're going to make your go-to person. And
Mm,
hopefully that will be Heather for you. But find somebody, because what you don't want, and this happens a lot for me, is I get clients going, I need a lawyer to handle this. I need a lawyer to handle that. And now you've got to
yes.
establish your relationship and find the right person. And usually these are very time sensitive things. So get Heather's boot camp, and then, really establish that person who's going to be your go-to person so that when and if you need someone, you've already know who that someone is.
Yes. Well, and that's a really great point for any of us, right? Whether it's with technology, whether it's with, our accounting or our books, whether it's with legal, like it really, as any of us lead our businesses, we need to develop team. And yes, the sooner rather than later that you can get connected with somebody who you feel like really understands your business, has served people at very high levels in the same space, you're just going to be well served to understand what resources are in the marketplace and start to get educated around those so that you feel what I want is people not to be in a scramble and making decisions out of fear, but really being empowered to know that they're making the right decision. And that just comes through support and having a little bit of the right legal education.
Yeah, well said. So, Heather, I know you listen to the show, so you probably know what's coming. uh, I always like to close our conversations because I believe that understanding that people do bold things to get where they want to go helps us
Mhm.
understand that this is not like going and getting a job somewhere. Like, having a business means you got to do stuff that freaks you out. Like, we're not going to
Mhm.
amplify results by staying all nice and cozy and small in our little cocoon. We've got to be willing to stretch. We've got to be willing to get outside our comfort zone. What is the boldest thing you've done up to now to create the business that you have today?
Mm. I'm going to take people back to the very start of my second business because it definitely felt outside of my comfort zone. And yet, luckily, I had great advice. So I was working with a business coach at the time. I was literally just in the midst of launching the legal website Warrior brand, right? I didn't even have a website up. And he asked me, he said, who are your clients? And I listed some people that, anybody listening to this call would know because they are literally the top of the industry, like publishing books and all over the media and blah, blah, blah. And part of my internal voice was saying, but who am I to think that I could work with folks like that? Like, even though I knew I could help them, right? There's always that internal voice. And my business coach said, why not start at the top? Why not just let them know that you do something that can help them? And he made it feel so accessible. And so I didn't even have a website launched. And sure enough, I made a list of my favorite people in the industry who I enjoyed observing what their work was about. And I knew I could support them. And I reached out and I emailed folks and said, hey, I really enjoy your work. And I literally just introduced myself and introduced what I do. And I probably got about 80% of the folks on that list that said, yes, I need your help.
Wow.
And that felt like a stretch.
Yeah, for any of us there's a lot of really bold people that would feel more easy. That would not feel easy to me. So kudos.
Yeah. So I love that advice. And I've repeated it to many people, start at the top. You know what you're capable of. You know who you are here to serve. Why start in the middle or at the bottom if you know you really have something that can support folks in a particular space, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, just with your ideas, go big. And I know that feels hard to do, but that has served me really well along the way, including at the very, very start of my journey.
Go big, go bold, take the risk. And you know what I love about that? And I know we don't have time to unpack this fully, but just as a general idea, my guess is many of those people turned into great connections who referred more business, who opened up other doors. And my guess is that was a really amazing bit of momentum that got started.
Absolutely. No, you're so, and if you're committed, if you're really somebody who loves your work and it shows, people can't help but introduce you to others who need you or who they think would be a great connection for you. It's just the way that human beings work.
Yeah, it is. And that's that momentum that we all hope to activate. So Heather, thank you so much for sharing some really great insights on how we can better, I don't want to say protect, because it's not about protection. It's more about being aware so that we can not fall into these little potholes that can really derail us down the road. And make sure you go get Heather's Legal Business Basics Bootcamp. I will hook up the link in the show notes for you over at amplifyyoursuccesspodcast.com. Heather, thank you for being here today. Any last words before we say goodbye today?
Oh, Melanie, I'm such a fan. It really is such a joy to be here with you. I love your podcast. I'm so honored to be here. And, you've got amazing folks in your circle and that listen to your podcast. And so, like Melanie said, don't see even the conversation around legal as protection. It feels very kind of defensive to, approach it that way. But literally, it's part of the business building journey. It's just one more thing that you have to take a look at. And it really doesn't have to be that challenging. So you've got it, just like you've tackled a million other things, you've totally got it.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Heather.
Thank you, Melanie.
Thanks for tuning in today, Amplifier. Be sure to join us right now in the Amplify Your Authority community at authorityamplifiers.com, and I'll share my 7 proven tips to be a highly paid expert that stands out in a crowded market. Plus, we're going to keep this conversation going, and I want to hear from you how you're going to amplify your authority and make a greater impact. Before you go, please take a minute to give our show and our guests some love over on your favorite podcasting platform. Subscribe, rate, and review. Leave your full name, and I'll spotlight you and your authority on social media.